the stove, and the fridge.
Late night load. Late night load. Late night load. With Wimsey and Lipscomb. Late night load. Late night load. Late night load. Late night load. With Wimsey and Lipscomb.
It might work for him, but no, it looks very awkward. Imagine if there's a plate for you to almost feel like you're shit.
If I get the plate right on the corner, just right, or you do like a TV tray like the 70s, and then I just turn the TV this way.
Okay, we got out a TV tray, ever again. Right. And I feel like I'm on a timeout. So this just doesn't work out. Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. That's gotta go. Okay. Style-wise. What are your guys' styles? So I'm a little bit eclectic, meaning I like a bunch of styles. Okay.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Websy here, and this is the Late Night Load, episode 28. All right.
California, Santa Barbara type style. I'm like you. I like 15 styles.
I like country and the farmhouse still. I think granite styles are out because it roots now and soft close cabin.
Gosh, yeah. I do not like hard close cabinets either. That's okay.
If you ever wondered where the biggest rednecks were, they're right here in Alabama. Go ahead down to your walkway on top of the log, put a bump seat right on the end.
Less walls, but that is so like 100% open concept.
All right.
If you ever wondered where the
So,
biggest
if you could have your dream kitchen, what exactly would you guys want in it?
These are little pumpkin bacon.
Oh, you created it.
I don't know if anybody else is going to show up for the show tonight, but let's go ahead and send out a message.
Oh, okay. So if you're pretend I like it, yeah, and then you want to see your TV or do away with it.
If you look through the pillars, you can kind of see the core of the TV.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. The rest of the crew knows. Now we can move on, right? All right. So tonight we're going to just cycle through some of the stories, some of the news that's been there's been a lot of news. So there's been some weird images coming from CERN. So I'm going to see if we can find anything about that, because that'll be interesting to talk about tonight.
Yeah. What are we looking at? Which one? 95-ish would be great. 95,000. Okay. We can definitely make that work. Okay. Here's what I'm thinking. So I heard what you guys said as far as opening everything up. I would love to get rid of these pillars and the archway and take it all the way up to the ceiling and really open up the kitchen. Carry the kitchen and open it all the way past the refrigerator. Have it wide open. Yes. Do a very large.
So I'm not really catching anything right off the bat here new.
You're going to get rid of this peninsula. Yeah. On this back wall right here, we can have a large slide-in range with a hood and uppers and lowers on each side. Yeah.
So maybe we'll circle back on that. Let's go into my history and check and see what I was looking at today scientifically. Oh, that's right. Well, let's go listen to this video by Anton Petrov about the new tractor beam that just came out. That's scientific news everywhere. We'll listen to this. We'll talk about it. We'll see what's going on. See if the rest of the crew bounces in. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. It's cool. We'll see them tomorrow. Oh, I'm sorry, guys.
And so if we can actually focus some of this light and use lasers to then try to push solar sails, these sails will then, in theory, reach ridiculous speeds.
All right.
But let's push it more. I want to focus on this is Anton. And today we're going to be discussing a relatively new study, a somewhat exciting study, that essentially created tractor beams, as demonstrated in the video you see right here. The laser moves the object, although in this case it doesn't just move the object, it pulls it toward the laser itself, attracting it in the process, or acting as the term itself suggests, a tractor beam, which is actually the original term which eventually became shortened to the tractor beam, And even though, like many of you, I originally thought that this was from Star Trek, that's not entirely true. This was originally used in a science fiction novel by E.E. Smith, Space Hounds of IPC, A Tale of Interplanetary Corporation, with the idea of tractor beam adapted to a lot of other science fiction, including Star Trek, afterwards. But before I explain to you what the scientists did in this particular study, I wanted to also briefly explain why the idea of tractor beam technology is actually so exciting. Or basically the idea behind some kind of a light beam pulling on the object and trying to attract it toward a certain point. And that's because the opposite of this is not very difficult to achieve. Pushing on the object with light is definitely quite possible with even just a typical laser. Here's actually a very common example that you can find in the description below. This is by NASA itself. And in this case, this is a repulsor beam, or basically the light from the laser gives this object quite a lot of momentum, pushing it in the process, allowing this object to move and to accelerate with time. This is of course what we expect of light, knowing what we know about light, and so none of this is surprising at all. And so for example, the idea of solar sails is entirely based on light pushing on something because photons contain momentum. And so if we can actually focus some of this light and use lasers to then try to push solar sails, these sails could then, in theory, reach ridiculous speeds. But that's pushing, or laser repulsion. That's not particularly difficult. But how would you attract an object using a laser, or using anything else? Developing these tricks in a certain type of ways, it becomes possible to track the object through the interaction of these waves with the shape on the water itself. And in theory,
Hey, sorry for the late warning.
Using
What's
other
up?
types of objects and other types of
Oh,
waves.
my exercise went 15, 20 minutes past my normal. I started late too. I let the kids stay up late. We're just having a good time and stuff. So.
I was completely out of it. I didn't even realize it was Thursday until I got your message.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure the other two guys are probably going, "Oh shit!" right now. Like, and one of them's like writing an excuse for why he can't come, and the other one's probably going, totally forget. So, anyways, this guy is talking about. I'll restart it again since you're here. This guy is talking about the new tractor beam technology that just came out.
Okay.
So it's a trip. So his name is Anton Petrov. I follow him for other things too. I get he's good for science news and stuff. So that's what I follow him
discussing
for.
a relatively new study, a somewhat exciting study, that essentially created tractor beams, as demonstrated in the video you see right here. The laser moves the object. Although in this case it doesn't just move the object, it pulls it toward the laser itself, attracting it in the process, or acting as the term itself suggests, a tractor beam, which is actually the original term which eventually became shortened to the tractor beam. And even though, like many of you, I originally thought that this was from Star Trek, that's not entirely true. This was originally used in a science fiction novel by E.E. Smith, Space Hounds of IPC, A Tale of Interplanetary Corporation, with the idea of tractor beam adapted to a lot of other science fiction, including Star Trek, afterwards. But before I explain to you what the scientists did in this particular study, I wanted to also briefly explain why the idea of tractor beam technology is actually so exciting. Or basically the idea behind some kind of a light beam pulling on the object and trying to attract it toward a certain point. And that's because the opposite of this is not very difficult to achieve. Pushing on the object with light is definitely quite possible with even just a typical laser. Here's actually a very common example that you can find in the description below. This is by NASA itself. And in this case, this is a repulsor beam, or basically the light from the laser gives this object quite a lot of momentum, pushing it in the process, allowing this object to move and to accelerate with time. This is of course what we expect of light, knowing what we know about light, and so none of this is surprising at all. And so for example, the idea of solar sails is entirely based on light pushing on something because photons contain momentum. And so if we can actually focus some of this light and use lasers to then try to push solar sails, these sails could then in theory reach ridiculous speeds. That's pushing, or laser repulsion. That's not particularly difficult. But how would you attract an object using a laser, or using anything else for that matter as well? Well, there have been some tricks here and there, and scientists have been actually developing these tricks for a very long time. Here's one of the earlier examples using water waves. In this case, by generating a certain type of waves, it becomes possible to track the object through the interaction of these waves with the shape on the water itself. And in theory, this is possible to recreate using other types of objects and other types of waves.
All
And that,
right.
of course, includes.
So back when we were hanging out at your parents' house in that back tiny little room, and we were packing 8 of us in there playing Xbox 360.
Yep.
At that time, did you know that I was actually developing this part of the science for this?
No.
I've got books like journals, like those old black and white speckled writing journals that you'd get in middle and high school. I have those from back in the day, just filled talking about this. What they're talking about, same thing with like what we're unlocking was we're walking through the Anunnaki stuff and all the Sumerian stuff is getting to that unlocked or that hidden technology. They're finally moving into those realms of maybe what those other civilizations knew and knew how to achieve it a different way. Well, we're learning how to achieve it through science, through this way. And what it is manipulating waves. So they're saying you can manipulate water, you can manipulate air, you can different types of things you can put different vibrations through, and that's what they're saying they're pushing and pulling this ball with. Well, back when we were younger, I was writing this theory based on electromagnetic waves off of because I had a lot of experience with like studio equipment and stuff for music production. And I was like, one of the things I learned is like when you're tuning these machines inside of the rack, you're actually like bending the waves and shortening and lengthening the waves and stuff. And I was like, I came to this like conclusion: what if we took a particle and shot it through a hose into this field, and inside this field were waves, sound waves moving around, and made that particle travel along those sound waves. And then that was like how I developed a technology for force field technology. So like if a spaceship has like a docking bay for smaller spaceships to come in and out of, that's the type of technology I developed.
Yep.
So I can show you that sometime too. It's really cool stuff. And so yeah, let's get back into it.
And so very similar types of attraction have been achieved with extremely small particles. It's not entirely clear how this can be used just yet, but some scientists have suggested we can maybe use this to, for example, clean pollution in the air. More importantly, though, it seems to work with certain types of laser beams. But there are a lot of other effects and a lot of other phenomena that can be used for similar principles. And that's pretty much exactly what was done in this experiment, allowing the scientists to actually manipulate an object that's much larger. In this case, I believe it's about 15 centimeters in length. And that by itself is a pretty big breakthrough. It's technically the first time ever that a macro object has been physically manipulated, producing the effects that we can technically describe as a tractor beam, a laser attracting the object toward it, but using a very different principle and using extremely specific conditions. So here's how this was done, and here's sort of how it works. Now, in a lot of other cases using lasers, normally this relies on the idea of momentum delivered by photons themselves. But in this case, the scientists use the other phenomenon. Lasers also deliver energy. You can basically heat up an object, and this heat can then be used as a kind of a propulsion. They used a much less known phenomenon known as the Knudsen force. A force that usually appears when you have two different materials very close to one another, and in this case these two materials will usually have different heat properties. And when one of the materials starts to heat up a little bit more than the other, it starts to produce a force that then, in theory, can move this object. Okay, it might become a little bit more clear if we actually analyze what the scientists did exactly. They made a material containing two different layers. One of them was made out of graphene, and the other one was made out of silicon oxide, or in other words, glass. And glass in this case lets quite a lot of laser light through, which makes one of the sides warm up much faster, and in this case, it's the side facing away from the laser. But they then also lower the atmospheric pressure to 5 Pascal. Not really vacuum, but definitely much lower than pressure on Earth. It's actually even lower than pressure on Mars. And so in these low air pressure conditions, they were then able to observe the laser pulling on the object and actually physically moving it, as seen in this video right here. And so this is something that's easily achievable if the right material is used and if present in somewhat low atmospheric conditions. But in this case, this would not work in all conditions. The force generated directly depends on the gas pressure and the heat difference between two different layers, with the scientists definitively establishing that a very low pressure of 5 pascals seems to produce the highest effect, and the more difference in heat there is between layers, the more propulsion is produced as well. But I guess more intriguingly, the pressure is not coming from the photons or from the light. It is coming from the surrounding molecules that, because of the heat difference, end up exerting more pressure on one side. But more intriguingly, the actual force generated is something like 1,000 times higher than the pressure exerted by the laser itself. So this seems to be a very efficient technique to move objects around. And so in other words, even though the pushing power of laser might be relatively low, this technique seems to dramatically increase the overall pressure generated as a result of heat. But
That's all we
it's
need.
unlikely to work in
So, basically saying is we're at that jumping off point of the technology. And as long as we continue down the path of correcting all the slight little mistakes that the technology may have, we could just keep on, developing that technology to where it does become powerful enough to use for some pretty cool aspects of things.
Like moving 10-ton cement bricks that are cut out of a quarry 100,000 miles away from the pyramids.
Yeah, exactly. Or taking an asteroid and moving it away from the Earth's orbit.
Just wait until all of the cop cars have these, and you try
Pulling a motherfucker over, you try to run away now. I can just see. Oh man.
situations. As a matter of fact, it's likely to work in typical atmospheric conditions on planet Earth, even if we use the same setup. But according to the scientists in this paper, Mars potentially has necessary conditions to actually use this phenomenon. The atmospheric pressure here is pretty low, and so in theory, it might be able to manipulate objects using lasers from really far away distances by using some kind of a remote probe. And so by using laser technology, and by using certain types of graphene, it may become possible to pull things around Mars without the physical presence by using typical lasers. Although in this case, it's not entirely clear how this could be used just yet.
As the old saying goes,
commercial
the apple
time.
doesn't fall far from the tree, even a tyrannical one.
This could also potentially be used in the upper atmosphere of planet Earth, and that's actually where we can maybe even test this in some near future. But at this stage, it's just a proof of concept. It looks like it's possible to pull objects using lasers if they're in low enough pressure conditions, and if you have two materials that heat up at very different levels. And so this is definitely not Star Trek yet. We don't really have the ability to create a large tractor beam usable in vacuum in order to move large objects or large spaceships around. But baby steps. It looks like we can use lasers to pull objects of certain properties in certain conditions.
What
which
about
is sort of
Bob?
how a lot of other optical technologies started as well. For example, the optical tweezers that are currently used in various scientific and medical fields, including manipulation of small molecules like DNA or small bacteria, also started with a small discovery years ago and eventually led to the Nobel Prize in 2018. So for all we know, maybe this is something similar. But I guess we're not going to know until future studies and until future discoveries. Still pretty cool stuff and pretty exciting. On that note, once we learn something else or once the scientists develop something different, I'll make sure to follow this up with another video. Until then, thank you for watching, subscribe, share this with someone who wants to learn about space and sciences. Come back tomorrow to learn something else.
Definitely, everybody go check this guy out. Anton Petrov
By
on
buying the
YouTube.
wonderful person t-shirt you can find in the description. Stay wonderful, I'll see you tomorrow, and as always, bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you, Anton, for sharing your knowledge about this with us and making an awesome video for us to watch. So that was a good video. Like I said, the technology is really like we're pushing all those boundaries right now, which means like, dude, by 2030, the technology is going to step over and it's going to complete that next phase of humanity or whatever. We're going to become a tier 1 civilization finally. And it's going to be pretty cool. We'll be able to go on like vacations to the moon and stuff. It'll take a 20-minute, it'll be a 20-minute as soon as we leave the atmosphere. It'll just be a 20-minute trip, with some of these technologies that they're really developing. a guy named Randall Carlson was talking about it on Joe Rogan, where he was talking about they were doing a whole bunch of stuff with sound. Like they finally mapped. He said they mapped the periodic table of elements for vibronic frequency, meaning they like took a tuning fork and slapped it against each one of the periodic elements, and then the sound that came off of it, they recorded it, and it came out. It read them out a number, and then they were able to make that sound again with an automated tuning fork on a digital device. So that's where they're at with that, meaning now they can just go, oh, what do we need to move? Coal? Or we want coal to lift up out of the ground? Just start playing at a high, at a high enough decibel, the specific frequency for coal, and then the coal will start to vibrate itself out of the ground. Or we could do that with gold, or we could do it with copper or iron, or as long as we know it's vibronic frequency, we can
Manipulate.
yeah, we're supposed to be able to manipulate it. Either I don't know what good it will do for some metals, but hey, gold and iron and stuff, being able to just strip it right out of the ground like that would be pretty cool. And then I have not gotten any new updates on the stuff coming out of Africa. The two reports that we got out of Africa, there's nothing new about the electric stone. And there's nothing new about the Mountain of Gold except for right now the government has guards guarding the section of the mountain where gold has been confirmed.
Yeah,
So
I don't think we're gonna get anything new from either one of those. I think those are both gonna get held pretty well under wraps. I mean, especially that metal or that crystal or whatever. They're not. They don't. That's not something for the general public as of right now, and I don't think it will be a while. I think they'll figure out ways to utilize it very strongly before it becomes a mainstream conversation.
All right. Well, we can also just take a quick look at that. Here's that comet that's passing by
Yeah.
the Earth. We can take a quick look at that. Live streaming. Who's the Real Pax? Okay, the Real Pax. I remember that movie from the 90s. Do you remember that movie about the dude that said he was like an alien or whatever, and he dressed like the lead singer of Smash Mouth?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. It was like John Cusack, I think, was the guy who played the alien. And they like arrested him and brought him in for questioning or whatever. And he's like, you got to let me go because I got to get back to, wherever I'm going. I got to get back home to my home planet. And I got to leave like now. Like this body will stay. You can have the body when I leave, but I got to step outside. And they were like, they didn't believe him or whatever. And he like, I guess like when they let him step outside, he got struck by lightning or something. Or something had some shit happen. It was weird. So now it was a good movie, but I don't know. They didn't say if it was based on just a story or a real anything. They never really gave us anything like that. So I get where your name comes from, buddy. But thank you for sharing live footage of this comet that's been circling our solar system for over 50,000 years, apparently. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I wish we'd have had some clear skies here.
Yeah, so we could see it.
Yeah.
It's like up here by where I live, my side of the cities. It's like partially cloudy, but not. It's not clear, Zoom in on that bad boy. Ain't going nowhere.
The whole tractor beam thing that just makes me think of the big tractor beam from Howard the Duck.
Oh man. Oh, there's so much funny from that movie.
That was such an adult movie, even though it kind of geared it towards kids.
Yeah.
I mean, the opening scene. I mean, he's sitting there with a Playboy with a duck chick on it.
He's drinking beer and smoking fat cigars, and then he gets sucked through his TV or whatever. Yeah. Oh, so did I ever tell you that when I was working at the Red Cow, one of the servers who worked like the shift with me for like 2 days a week or whatever, he looked just like the scientist dude from that fucking movie. And dude, all I could think of was Alan. Like, just oh my god, dude would walk by and say something, and I would just look at my coworker and be like, Alan. Oh man, I lost myself. And, like, you ever meet people that just look like other people that just can't stop you from laughing? You know, I have that a lot. It's no offense. I don't mean to be offensive when I make an association with a person, but sometimes you meet those perfect ones. You're like, I've actually met the dude that looks like Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove.
So me and Nick used to play the celebrity game at the mall.
Oh, great place to play.
So one time, Allie and Alex had bring Kiriana and Alyssa to Underwater World, and so me and Nick just kind of hung out by the escalators up above Underwater World at the mall. And so we're playing the game just to pass time. We're like, Wookie Goldberg, all of NSYNC, and then here comes this mall cop on a Segway, and we're like,
Paul Bart.
This guy, I bullshit you not. This mall cop made this moment so memorable because as fast as we called him out, he busted a 180 on his Segway, pulled right up to us, and was like, I am not Paul Blart, just pissed off like he hears it all the time, and he's just sick of it. And after saying that, they just turns around and just cruises away from us. I mean, we were practically on the ground in tears, laughing.
Oh my god! Well, that's hilarious.
So what you building over there? You building the shredder?
Yeah, I'm working on that shredder build still. This is what it looks like originally.
Yep.
I'm carving in a bunch of lines on this part right here. So, just to give it more part separation and stuff to make it look more detailed. That's all. I finished up this section of the arm. So I carved out and did a bunch of carving on both sides of that. I posted pictures online of it earlier today. So I put them into where I built it to where I was like 4 different stages of the customization, so people could understand what cuts to do first and what scribe lines to make first before you make your cuts and stuff. Because the part had a big tapered slope, and I put a line in, and then I cut that slope out and made it flat, so it looked like sections of a car. You know what I mean? Like when you go from different sections, like on a Corvette or a Dodge Viper, how they have those spots where it looks like it could take air into it and shit. That's what I was thinking of doing and stuff. So that's how I did that. So I got that done yesterday with the arms, just slowly working on that, tinkering with it throughout the day, and that's what I've just been doing with the shoulder parts now. Is I'm just slowly tinkering on it. I got a month and a half to finish this up, so I'm not in a rush, and I decided I was gonna just do a whole bunch of scribe work on it to make it special instead of adding a whole bunch of other things to it, or compounding it and making it look too busy. I was like, just some more lines. It's got a whole bunch of open space, so it's pretty simple. Anyways, the comment's up. Oh gosh, no, we don't want to see that. Yeah, there really wasn't a whole lot tonight that I was going to just talk about. I was just jumping on to say hi to everybody and shoot the shit, have a short show for the most part. And try and do some things. Do we want to watch the Simpsons predictions for 2023? And then we can track them for the year. All right, commercial first, of course. All right.
Simpsons predictions for 2023 is unbelievable. Ever since mankind first appeared on the Earth, curious individuals have been attempting to divine the future. From the mysterious Baba Vanga to the Mayans, even the Simpsons have made prophecies that will give you shivers. The long-running series is renowned for having garnered a reputation for accurately predicting the future. The television show has been successful for more than 3 decades because of a devoted audience that is immersed in the characters of Homer, Marge, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie. As a result of the fact that the Simpsons have in the past accurately anticipated events such as tiger attacks and the election of Donald Trump as president, many people now pay close attention to the show's future forecasts. So without further ado, here are the forecasts for 2023. Inflation crisis. This forecast, which is reportedly for the year 2023, may come as a surprise to you, despite the fact that we are all well aware of the current situation with gas prices and the rising expense of living. Homer is told by a guy that anarchy and the end of civilization are coming shortly to a country near you in America. Homer gives his response saying, "America can't fail because we're just as strong as ancient Rome." The viewer is presented with a film in which the following statement is made: "The contemporary world is an unstoppable march of development." The video continues after Homer says, "Delicious," and then asks, "Or is it we're slaves to the system? Shut the grocery and we starve." Then cards with phrases like "no local farming," "peak oil," Ben Bernanke, solar flares, 17-year cicadas, and dangerous trolls start to emerge. Homer continues by saying,
Dangerous trolls.
"Oh my gosh, this film with no citation."
That's one I'm picking out. I'm picking out Dangerous Trolls. So that's oversized hominids for 500, Bob. Oversized hominids for 500.
Homer receives reassurance from the man who says to him, "I'm the person you want to know when the stuff hits the fan." Nuclear conflict between the United States and China. Another prediction is a nuclear conflict. It would seem that the Simpsons have predicted that there would be a nuclear war between the United States and China in the year 2023. In one of their episodes, you can hear a news presenter stating, "It is with great regret that I notify you that the United States of America and China have declared war on one another. It is anticipated that a big nuclear strike will arrive on our beaches within the next hour. Trump as President of the United States in 2024. The program takes its ability to predict the future to a whole new level in the episode Bart to the Future from the year 2000, when it names Donald Trump as having served as President of the United States. During the course of the episode, Lisa holds the office of President. We overhear her speaking when she is in the Oval Office, and she says, "As you are aware, we've inherited quite a financial problem from President Trump. Trump was inaugurated as the 45th President of the United States in the year 2017, and also very possible in the year 2024. The Simpsons predict public health and safety fears are rising. The information relating to the 2023 Resident Evil forecast made by the cartoon series The Simpsons has recently burst on social media platforms both in the United States and internationally. It is suggested in episode 4 of season 21 of The Simpsons that in the year 2023, the Springfield Burger Restaurant, which is where the show's main setting is based, would create a new beef burger. This beef burger was made using a totally different way from the traditional one.
Oh no.
First, the excellent beef is ground up and mixed with other ingredients to form feed, which is then given to the cattle. Next, the beef that comes from the cattle that were fed the same sort of meat throughout their development is used to manufacture hamburger meat. After trying the brand new beef burger, a reporter began to extol its delicious qualities. However, the reporter suddenly went insane and began biting other people. As a result, the whole town quickly descended into insanity, and the majority of the population turned into zombies. After it was revealed that Bart was born with antibodies to the virus and the remaining survivors reliant on drinking Bart's bathwater to live, the Resident Evil dilemma was resolved by Bart, the son of the Simpsons character Homer Simpson. It should come as no surprise that the serial animation of The Simpsons is itself a work that depicts reality in a tone that is ludicrous. The majority of the information included in each episode of the animation has been thoroughly deliberated over by the show's producers as well as content industry specialists.
Oh, yeah.
Therefore, despite the fact that some of the information can seem to be absurd, it is in fact substantiated by real-world occurrences or proof.
Definitely.
Well, I've been watching, The Last of Us lately.
Ooh, yeah.
So I was watching this little documentary or whatever about a fungus that's actually, I want to say it's in the South American jungles.
Yeah.
fungus attaches itself to small insects, and it like kind of controls them for a couple of days until it finally gets them onto a leaf, and then they die there, and then it's able to spread there. But I just thought it was, real interesting that there's already, a fungus of that sort, kind of on the planet that, I mean, obviously is manipulating creatures of a much smaller scale. But could you just imagine something like that in
Yeah,
type of,
turning into the show The Last of Us with the video game. Yeah, because when I was playing through the video game, I was real like, whoa, they like, I was like, yeah, that was some bogus. Because I put that together when I was playing the game, and I was like, that's some messed up shit. Like, because that's probably where I think they theorized it from, right? Where like the whole setup is
yeah,
it was a bioweapon that went awry, like they couldn't control it. And yeah, then somebody is immune to it, like the little girl or whatever.
yeah,
The other things on here too, just so they're saying Simpsons are predicting Trump becomes president a second time, but he doesn't help us out of this economic crisis. That's crazy.
yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, that'll suck. Like, I don't know. And then yeah.
For instance,
Then
utilizing
the mad
bees
cow
for
shit.
cattle is
Dude,
something
this stuff's
that really
crazy.
happens in the real world. Some individuals have been toying with the concept of using the flesh as feed in order to improve the protein level of the feed in order to make the animal's meat taste better. This is possible since the cost of rearing animals in the West is quite affordable. Prions, which were eventually referred to as mad cow disease, were disseminated across the animal planet as a result of the increased usage of animal feed. Due to prions degrading brain tissue, animals and people afflicted with mad cow disease will exhibit symptoms like irritability, short temper, and extreme hostility. In this respect, they are very similar to the depictions of zombies seen in films and on television. Therefore, The Simpsons are less of a forecast for the year 2023 and more of an outrageous creative portrayal of actual events that have occurred throughout history. Ukraine crisis. 1998 was the year that The Simpsons-tide, the 19th episode of season 9 of The Simpsons, had its debut. During the course of the episode, a delegate from each nation attended a United Nations meeting where they discussed the respective nations' future intentions. The envoy from Russia said that they wanted the other nations to believe that the Soviet Union was in the past. This remark was made by the Russian representative.
What? Go lay
There were
down.
some shots showing the flag of the Soviet Union being hoisted along with some troops queuing up. It is claimed that this terrible forecast was the most recent one that came true in the year 2022. 2014 was the year when Russia officially took control of Crimea, and in February 2022, Russia launched an invasion of Ukraine and began conducting airstrikes on Ukrainian residents. The showrunner for The Simpsons noted that this forecast is not comparable to some of the show's trivial predictions, but rather comes from the continuous conflicts that have been present throughout history. Elon Musk. In Treehouse of Horror 33.
Yeah, so I mean, anything to do with like over there with Russia, the when the original Soviet Union fell, there was a large group of people who didn't want the Soviet Union to fall within that country, and they all, just like you hear here in America, the communists will rise again, and in America, the South will rise again. That's stupid shit. So, I mean, if you look at it that way, that's what it's basically some sour losers. They got back into power, and now they're trying to get back what they had. And I don't know. It's not apparently going too well in their direction, from what
No, it hasn't been.
I've been watching it, and it's just, I mean, it's not something of entertainment to watch. I'm watching it because it's important. We got to keep an eye on it, because it affects our whole world. It really does, and a lot of people just want to ignore it because it's not something we can change. It's not something we can go over there and slap the bad guy and be like, stop. We can't do that. Like, that's not how that works right now. It would be the easiest thing to do. That's how I would do it. I'd just go slap him. Like, get a hold of yourself, man. People are dying. It's pointless, but, as the wheels of civilization turn, you have to cycle back to the one part of civilization nobody likes, which is war. So, right now. But along with that, though, I heard the efforts are good, and I heard Ukraine is doing a good job at holding Russia off, and that they're actually talking about a counterstrike and taking back that province that they just said that Russia had taken like 4 years ago or whatever. They
Yeah.
said that they're actually talking about Ukraine's talking about going and taking that back. So that's interesting. So that's just what I've been paying attention to recently.
The cartoon family lives in a version of Westworld.
Okay.
2022.
Elon
Russia
Musk.
launched an
We're
invasion
moving
of
into
Ukraine
something
and began
Elon Musk is
conducting
going to do.
airstrikes on Ukrainian residents. The showrunner for The Simpsons noted that this forecast is not comparable to some of the show's trivial predictions, but rather comes from the continuous conflicts that have been present throughout history.
Yeah.
Elon Musk. In Treehouse of Horror 33, the cartoon family lives in a version
Wow.
of Westworld in which the employees of the amusement park utilize a Cybertruck to transport broken robots to a facility where they may be repaired. Monorail Homer becomes caught in an endless loop of a catchphrase, and the humanoid robot has to be turned off by flipping a switch on his nose. After that, he is hurled into the cargo area of a Cybertruck. The next episode, titled Not It, will include more of Tesla's time spent in Springfield. A white Model X may be seen on screen for a brief period of time during the show's humorous retelling of Stephen King's It, which only lasts a few seconds. In episode 716 of The Simpsons, which airs in December 2021, Fit Fat Tony is revealed to be Maggie's godfather and provides the Simpson family with a lease on a Lexus SUV. After some time has
remember
passed,
that.
Bart is seen tinkering with the Falcon doors. There was also a cameo of the Tesla Roadster in an episode of The Simpsons. In the 5th episode of the 32nd season, a red Roadster is seen parked in front of the estate that belongs to Leonardo DiCaprio. Despite the obvious mistake, the automobile was connected to the outlet on the right side of the vehicle. The Model S has also made an appearance in the program. In order to avoid having to pay for power, Mr. Burns owns a Model S, which he charges at the residence of Richard Branson. Additionally, Krusty the Clown has a Model S. He hangs out the window and attacks Homer while using autopilot as his support. Who among us could ever forget the episode? During the episode from season 26, when Tesla's CEO landed in Homer's garden and the two quickly became friends, he provided his own voiceover for the show. Bart and Lisa decided to take Elon's vehicle for a joyride, and in order to activate FSD, they enter the password Musk Rules. The play, however, takes an unexpected turn when Mr. Burns makes a plot to murder Musk. Since it is well known that The Simpsons has a knack for predicting the future, we may assume that in 2023, when the Cybertruck has been seen driving about in Springfield, it will be available for mass manufacturing in the real world. And that's it. Thanks for watching this video. Click the
That's
subscribe
the
button.
takeaway.
See you in the
The
next video.
Cybertruck. All right, so I've got. That's too good. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So that's pretty much it. Let's see what this is all talking about. Commercial time. Commercial time.
Near infrared light.
All right.
Thanks to the images taken
It made
in 1995
contact
and
from
2014,
Future Unity, one of those
JWST's new image of the
heavy
pillars of creation
bombardment
will
sites
assist
that
researchers
just
in proving their
load
models
the
of
same
how stars
video
formed
20
by
times.
identifying far more
I've watched
precise
this one. This is a
counts
good
of
one.
newly formed stars, along with the quantities of gas and dust in the region. With time, scientists will gain a clearer understanding of how stars form and burst out of these dusty clouds over millions of years. The second time the JWST took an image of the pillars of creation, it used the mid-infrared instrument, or MIRI. The result was a somber and chilling production. Another one in the
Can
set
you
of
wait?
images showed the
Can you
nebula
wait 10 more minutes?
Doradus in great
Just wait 10
detail.
more minutes.
It is also known as the Tarantula Nebula and is one of the largest and brightest star-forming regions in the galaxies nearest to our Milky Way. The Tarantula Nebula is located 161,000 light-years away in the Large Magellanic Cloud Galaxy. The name is inspired by the long dusty filaments resembling spiders' legs in older images. The picture shows this stellar nursery in another level of clarity, showing tens of thousands of young stars that were previously shrouded in cosmic dust, hence never seen before. Often
That's
referred to as the
really cool.
successor of the Hubble Space Telescope, the JWST is the largest space observatory ever built. Its gigantic sunshield base measures a massive 22 meters by 12 meters, about the size of a tennis court. However, even though it is nearly twice as big as Hubble, which is only 13 meters long, the JWST is almost half by weight at only 6,500 kilograms. The JWST's gold-plated mirrors have a total diameter of 6.5 meters, much larger than Hubble's 2.4-meter diameter plate. This means the JWST will have approximately a 15 times wider view than Hubble. You've heard different comparisons of JWST.
All right, I'm gonna be right back. I gotta take the dog to the bathroom.
With
Yep,
Hubble, but the
okay.
two iconic telescopes function
Just go ahead and pause real
differently.
quick. I'm gonna step away for a second too.
Focuses on both visible and ultraviolet light. It has some infrared capability, but it is nowhere near the extent to which the JWST can. In fact, the JWST is designed to work on the infrared spectrum. This means it can't see in ultraviolet light as the Hubble, but it can focus on bright objects like very distant galaxies. But distant galaxies are not the limit. For JWST, it can observe objects that are over 13.6 billion light years away. This means we will look back 13.6 billion years, which brings us between 100 and 250 million years close to the Big Bang. Most of the size of the JWST is due to its large sun shield. It is so big that NASA engineers had to design it to unfold during the launch because of space limitation on the launch vehicle, and then unfurl it while it journeyed to the permanent orbit. This is used on all space telescopes, but is especially important with the JWST due to its infrared cameras. If it isn't kept cool enough, it stands the risk of blinding itself to the lights of objects it is trying to observe. One other key difference between the two satellites is their distance. The Hubble telescope orbited above Earth's atmosphere, but was near enough to be approached if repairs needed to be done. But the JWST is many magnitudes further away, around 1.5 million kilometers away. That places it farther than any human can and has ventured, meaning nobody can call on it for a repair if something goes wrong. One of the things scientists have discovered at the very edge of the universe is a galaxy named Able 2744Y1. This galaxy is special for many reasons. Able 2744Y1 is so far away that light from it gets to us after 13 billion years of traveling. Remember, the universe is estimated to be 13.8 billion years old. One thing about Able 2744Y1 is that we are seeing it as it was when it was only 650 million years old. This is true of all distant objects in space because the light from them has taken so long to reach us here on Earth. Able 2744Y1 was discovered using a total of 3 telescopes, Spitzer, Chandra, and Hubble. But just how did 3 telescopes come together to discover a single item? Well, the Hubble captures images in visible and near-infrared light, while the Spitzer has the advantage of using the infrared portion, the electromagnetic spectrum. Scientists use Chandra to collect additional data using X-ray wavelengths. By combining data from these 3 space telescopes, astronomers are able to see galaxies up to 100 times more distant than any of the observatories could have done individually. The astronomers attached to the Instituto de Astrofísica de Canarias, IAC, La Laguna University in Spain, started with the Hubble, which detects the galaxy in question. This is then followed by the Spitzer, whose instruments are used to calculate the distance of the object where it's located. The telescope also helps to determine how many stars are in the galaxy. The scientists also used a method known as gravitational lensing when they photographed Able 2744Y1. The underlying principle is similar to how a magnifying glass bends sunlight, because images from distant galaxies are put into focus by galaxies closer to Earth. This natural telescope to view the most distant objects in the universe was first predicted by Albert Einstein in his general theory of relativity. So how large is this galaxy? Astronomers say Able 2744Y1 is quite small in size. It is about 50 times smaller than our own Milky Way galaxy, or about 2,300 light years in width. However, what this galaxy lacks in size, it makes up.
So that's pretty small. That means, if we were to look through that galaxy for life, we could possibly find it faster there than in our own galaxy.
Yeah.
By a great significant amount of speed. So that's something that's cool. Also, I was reading up, this isn't the only far distance galaxy that we've looked at. They've actually, on paper, have admitted to reading one or reaching the distance further than we previously could. in the sense of like, okay, so you know how they were saying like our universe is only 13.6 billion light years or whatever. They
0.8.
said, yeah. So they said they saw a galaxy that's 21 billion light years away. Through this same process of infrared imaging and stuff. So, I don't know if that makes the universe older or if it just means that um, we can now see further. And it was kind of a thing is like before we thought it was younger. Now we can see farther, so it should be considered older now. I don't know.
Yeah.
And some scientists tried explaining like no, that's not what's going on. So I'm not 100% sure. But Neil deGrasse Tyson tried explaining that the point of the Big Bang in that galaxy and our galaxy are still only 13.8 billion light years away from the Big Bang, but because the galaxy and us are going in different directions, we are actually that much further apart from each other.
Yeah.
Type of a thing doesn't mean we're older or the universe is older. It just means the measurement. We can now say that we can measure in a triangulated time frame of from our galaxy to the Big Bang point, and from the Big Bang point to that galaxy, and then we measure the distance between our galaxy and that galaxy, and it could give us a better numeration of how old our universe actually is. So that could be possible. Thought I don't know. It's just
The rate of star production. It generates stars at a rate 10 times faster than the Milky Way, but that is typical of galaxies in the young universe. The Able 2744Y1 galaxy has a redshift of 8. Redshift is a way of measuring the degree to which an object's light has been shifted to redder wavelengths due to the expansion of the universe. In comparison, the farthest confirmed galaxy before the discovery of Able 2744Y1 has a redshift of more than 7. Remember we said that the universe is 46.1 billion light years in radius. That is the limit of the observable universe. There is much more out there. How do we know what lies out there beyond the observable universe? We can make inferences based on the laws of physics that we know, and by using the things we can measure within our observable universe. For instance, we observe that the universe is spatially flat on the largest scales. It's neither positively nor negatively curved to a precision of 0.25%. If our current laws of physics are correct, we can set limits on how large at least the universe must be before it curves back on itself. We can get the best data for our extrapolation from observations from the Sloan Digital Sky Survey and the Planck satellite. The two sources suggest that if the universe does curve back in on itself and close, the part we can see is so indistinguishable from uncurved, it must be at least 250 times the radius of the observable part. This leads to the conclusion that the unobservable universe, assuming bearing any topological weirdness, must be at least 23 trillion light years in diameter. It must contain a volume of space that is over 15 million times as large as the volume we can observe. However, there are compelling arguments that the unobservable universe should be significantly even bigger than that. How? It's like this. The hot Big Bang might mark the beginning of the observable universe as we know it, but it doesn't mark the birth of space and time itself. This is because before the Big Bang, the universe underwent a period
kind of what I was
cosmic
talking about.
inflation. Rather than being filled with matter, radiation, and being hot, the universe was filled with energy inherent to space itself, expanding at a constant exponential rate and creating new space so quickly that the smallest physical length scale, the Planck length, would be stretched to the size of the presently observable universe every 10 raised to the power of negative 32 seconds. Sure, inflation stopped in our region of the universe.
Okay, everybody, let's try to make some combinations for my champions. Oh, these two aren't a bad match. Oh yeah, Thunderbolt.
Inflation
However,
stopped.
3 key questions that directly affect how large our universe is remain unanswered. These questions deal with whether the universe is infinite or not. They are: 1. How big was the region of the universe post-inflation that created our hot Big Bang? 2 is the idea of eternal inflation, where the universe inflates eternally into the future in at least some regions. Correct. And 3, how long did inflation go on before its end and the resultant hot Big Bang? It is possible that the universe where inflation occurred barely attained a size larger than what we can observe. Perhaps any year from now, the evidence for an edge to where inflation happened will materialize, and we will have to adjust our perception of the universe again. But it is just possible that there are plenty of universes out there just like ours, following the same.
So that goes along with like I kind of got ahead of the video then, didn't I? Where they like explained very clearly a lot better than I did, obviously, but it makes a lot of sense, why. And then that also pushes out that whole idea why obviously we haven't found another super civilization yet. It's like we're still little kids that can't see very far.
We're
You know
ants.
Yeah, like so, especially on the cosmic scale. You're right. We're ants. We're grains of sand.
I mean, you think about how old the universe is and how old Earth is. I mean, we've had life on this planet for a fraction of the time of the lifespan of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, we've heard many people talk about time and time again, and I mean, yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, there could very easily be other life forms out there somewhere that, I mean, they had a fucking 10 billion year jump on us of
where they could be in that spectral form now where they don't even need solid matter objects anymore.
They could have ascended to a spiritual form.
Laws of physics and having the same types of physical cosmic structures. This raises the tantalizing possibility of complex life in one of the numerous worlds out there. There should also be a finite size and scale to the bubble in which inflation ended, and an exponentially massive number of such bubbles contained within the larger inflating space-time. From the most distant galaxy ever captured, we move to another distant object, this time a supernova. What is the most distant supernova ever spotted by astronomers? That title goes to DS16C2NM. If you are wondering what is up with the name, it is because the supernova was first spotted by the Dark Energy Survey, which is a research work that seeks to better understand the mysterious force thought to be responsible for how the universe's expansion is accelerating. Supernovas are some of the biggest explosions we can ever have. Picture an atomic bomb, but with infinitely more bang. They are like the last valiant effort made by stars before they die. The stars here are at least 5 times bigger than our own sun. Here is how stars work so that we understand how they die. Massive stars basically burn humongous amounts of nuclear fuel at their cores. This leads to the release of tons of energy, and as a result, the center gets very, very hot. This heat generates pressure. The pressure created by a star's nuclear burning also keeps that star from collapsing. When you see a star in the sky, it's because there's a balance between 2 opposite forces. On the one side, the star's gravity tries to squeeze the star to the smallest, tightest ball possible. On the other side, the nuclear fuel burning in the star's core produces a strong outward counterpressure. This outward push resists the inward squeeze of gravity. But when the fuel runs out, the star starts to change its behavior. It begins to cool off, causing a drop in pressure. This goes on until gravity eventually wins and the star collapses in a spectacular fashion. This is a brisk affair as the collapse occurs in a short period of time. It would be like the Earth collapsing in just 15 seconds. This collapse creates shockwaves that cause the outer portion of the star to explode. You can also have a supernova when 2 stars collide. Supernovas are not that common. You could have 2 or 3 in a century, so it is always special when a supernova occurs. DS16C2NM was detected in 2016, and scientists confirmed a supernova like that is extremely rare. It is like the very extreme version of what you call normal supernovas. The discovery was made by a team of international astronomers, and they say the explosion took place about 10.5 billion years ago. This means the light from the explosion has been traveling to us for more than 3/4 of the existence of the universe itself. What is even more mind-boggling is that the location of the supernova is even more than that, thanks to the expansion of the universe. The team also enlisted the help of 3 powerful telescopes, the Very Large Telescope, Magellan, and the Keck Observatory. It involved more than 400 scientists from all over the world and took 5 years with 525 nights of observation. While the scientists ran into many troubles to locate the supernova, the effort will pay off in many ways. The extreme distance of DES 16C2NM gives the scientific community a totally new insight into the nature of superluminous supernovas, or SLSN. Scientists can determine the amount of metals produced in the explosion by studying the ultraviolet light from the SLSN. It can also reveal the temperature at which the explosion occurs. These 2 things here are key to the understanding of what causes and drives these massive cosmic explosions. However, it may not be long before another, more distant supernova is found, because scientists are out looking for them, spurred on by the extraordinary discovery of DES 16C2NM. What is the furthest astronomical object humans can see? One thing is that there are some objects in the universe that we might never see. Why? About 16 billion light years from Earth, this marks the current cosmic event horizon of the universe. Are we there yet? Nope, not yet. This distance is the upper limit of light ever reaching us if it originated at that distance today. This implies beyond 16 billion light years, the expansion of space is faster than the speed of light itself. Obviously, the light will never reach us, as it will have to travel through a relatively expanding space. This also signifies that any event that may have happened today beyond the cosmic event horizon will not be observable by us, no matter what. But we can see even further through telescopes like the JWST. The most distant galaxy ever observed is the GNZ11, located about 32.
And so with the release of Token Shop, we're also introducing a slew of new cards. And the cards are
2 billion light years away from Earth. Mind you, we calculate this distance taking
32 billion light
space
years.
as well. At about 46 billion light years away from Earth, we reach what is called the surface of last scattering. This is what you will observe irrespective of the direction you look at. The surface of last scattering is like a uniform sphere of fog from which the first ever photons of cosmic microwave background radiation came after recombination and photon decoupling. Contrary to the name, it's the origin of the very first scattering of light, but the last of what we can observe. Is this finally the edge of the universe? Yes and no. Technically, this is the farthest point in space and the farthest in time that we can observe. That essentially forms the edge of the observable universe. What lies even beyond that is what is known as the opaque universe. This brings us to what is the largest object in the universe? How large is the largest thing? It is so large that it is not supposed to exist. This is because it transcends our perception of size and violates the very laws of physics. The structure is the Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall. Cosmologists have always been baffled by the uniformity or homogeneity of the universe, because the leftover heat from the Big Bang is astonishingly uniform in every direction we look. And because these early temperature fluctuations subsequently led to density fluctuations, one can also say the same thing about the matter in the universe. If the matter in the universe...
So what they're saying is we're just at the end of some kid's sparkler.
Yep.
You know, that's what I'm getting. Is like, so 'cause everything's pretty with the sparkler.
Distributed, large clumps would have attracted smaller chunks of matter. The universe wouldn't have expanded, but instead contracted under its own gravity. However, even though it is homogeneous on a very large scale, the universe, due to slight initial irregularities, is locally heterogeneous. The heterogeneity can be observed in dense populations of stars, galaxies, clusters, a collection of galaxies, and superclusters, a collection of clusters. The homogeneity was explained by the theory of inflation, a highly crucial aspect of the Big Bang model of the universe. This model is currently believed to be the most convincing explanation of the birth of our universe. However, the Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall is a supercluster that represents such an immense irregularity or non-uniformity that it defies the laws of inflation. The supercluster is so humongous that it exceeds the maximum structural size allowed by the inflationary model of the universe. The Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall was discovered in 2013 by a team of astronomers while looking for gamma ray bursts, or GRBs. For this reason, the structure is often called the Great GRB Wall. Gamma rays are the most powerful type of radiation in the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Such super high frequency radiation emanates only in a handful of stellar events, such as supernovae, the explosive death of a star, collisions of neutron stars, or matter spun around violently by a black hole. The energy released during a supernova is so colossal that the sun cannot produce the same amount during its entire lifetime. Astronomers study these bursts because they enable us to locate massive structures in the universe. Massive stars can only form around a dense surplus of mass because that is what they feed on. Also, planetary systems like our solar system are fundamentally congregated debris dispersed during the explosive deaths of these very same stars from supernovae. So studying these structures allows us to glimpse both the childhood and the grand history of our universe. So these researchers recorded an unusually high volume of gamma ray bursts concentrated about 10 billion light years away in the direction of the Hercules and Corona Borealis constellations. The angle this volume spanned in space translated to a width of 10 billion light years. Yes, the Great GRB Wall is 10 billion light years wide. For perspective, that is 10% of the diameter of the observable universe.
Well, you know what Pumbaa would say, right? He disappeared.
Researchers themselves were
Really
skeptical
bad.
about their discovery. How could a single structure account for 10% of the whole observable universe? Co-author John Hackler expressed his disbelief in a press conference in 2014 when he remarked, "I would have thought this structure was too big to exist." However, the team calculated that the chances of the gamma ray shower springing up randomly in that location are very slim. In fact, far less than 1 in 100. This brought them solace and convinced Hackler to believe that the structure exists. In fact, other structures appear to violate the inflationary model, such as the Sloan Great Wall and the Huge Large Quasar Group. This is why Hackler is adamant that the hype of the Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall being the largest object won't last for long, because sooner or later, someone is likely to come along and find something bigger, more distant, or older than the thing you found. This period detected by the JWST is known as the scarcely probed era, which explains how the very first stars and galaxies were formed. The events surrounding this process seem partially uncovered by scientists, as the entire process depends on exotic physics. But now that such a discovery has been made about the Big Bang era with the James Webb Telescope, cosmetologists will be able to dig deeper into more phenomena that have been left unsolved. This involves either confirming the validity of their best consensus models or revealing gaps in understanding that could bring about new discoveries. This ranges from uncertain influences of dark matter and dark energy to the faintly understood feedback between starlight, gas, and dust. Such observations were supposed to take time as initial projection.
So now we're searching for the magic frequency. And we start with 100 hertz.
Projections had estimated that the first galaxies were going to be so small that the JWST might have a hard time finding some of them during its investigations. But the $10 billion powerful telescope proved the predictions wrong and sent astronomers and cosmologists back to work as soon as it sent back its first images of the distant universe. Upon receiving the images, astronomers such as NIte began to find several galaxies within the images that outshined all predictions about size, age, and luminosity. It was an irregular period that almost made scientists freak out, as NIte wasn't the only one that made these discoveries. Several research groups also made their discoveries from the images sent back by the JWST. It nearly turned into a field of competition as news of other record-breaking galaxies kept coming from different research groups. It was something scientists never expected.
Nothing major.
Shortly
They've
after the
not covered
JWST
anything
found
special
these
yet.
galaxies, theorists and observers began to check them out, looking to explain the phenomena. They began to wonder if the bevy of anomalously big and bright early galaxies was illusory, or could it have been flaws in the telescope's initial observations? But if these discoveries were genuine, could they be analyzed by standard cosmological models? Theorists also thought, could these discoveries be the first hints that the universe is more strange and complex than even our boldest theories had supposed? One thing this discovery made by the JWST puts at stake is our understanding of how the universe we know emerged from prehistoric chaos. This means that the JWST's early discoveries could be a factor that would rewrite the opening chapters of cosmic history, which does include not only distant epochs and faraway galaxies, but
Just
also
looks like
human
sparkles
existence
falling
here
off the
in our
sparkler.
familiar Milky Way. A senior advisor for science and exploration at the European Space Agency, Mark McCorian, commented on the discoveries made by the JWST. He stated, "You built these machines not to confirm the paradigm, but to break it. You just don't know how it will break." The JWST's observations of early galaxies have been billions of years in the making, but honestly, they only trace back to the Space Telescope Science Institute, STSCI, in 1985. At this time, the JWST's predecessor, the Hubble Space Telescope, was still 5 years away from launching on a space shuttle. But Garth Illingworth, the then deputy director of the STSCI, was surprised when his boss, director Riccardo Giacconi, who passed away in 2018.
That's a
asked him
mobster
weird
name if
question.
you've ever heard
Giacconi
one. Riccardo Giacconi. That's total Italian mobster
his
name right
deputy
there.
about what would happen next after the Hubble Space Telescope made its discoveries. Illingworth was shocked at the question, as he protested there was still much work to do on the Hubble Space Telescope, but Giacconi didn't budge. After that conversation, Illingworth put together a team. They began to draw up concept ideas for what they referred to as the Next Generation Space Telescope, NGST, later renamed the James Webb Telescope after former NASA administrator James Edwin Webb. And the need for the JWST telescope was made pressing in December 1995, when astronomers pointed the Hubble Space Telescope at a seemingly empty patch of sky for 10 days in a row. Several experts predicted the Hubble observation for 10 days would yield nothing much, and at its best would reveal some dim galaxies.
They're
But the
wrong.
results from the Hubble Space Telescope shocked them. This image, known as the Hubble Deep Field, showed that the empty spot it was pointed to contained thousands of galaxies dating back to 12 billion years into the 13.8 billion year history of our universe. Illingworth, now an astrophysicist at the University of California, Santa Cruz, recalled the discovery, saying there were galaxies everywhere. With that image, the Hubble field showed that the early universe was more crowded and exciting than most scientists had expected. It became a lost but now found treasure to astronomers and scientists who took the time to look properly. Despite how mind-blowing Hubble's deep field was, astronomers and scientists still wanted more, and that led to the birth of the James Webb Telescope. After over 2 decades of hard work and innovation at the cost of $10 billion, the James Webb Telescope was launched on December 26, 2021. Its journey started and it reached its deep space destination a month later. At this stage, the JWST had to go through powerful testing to ensure its optimal performance. This testing continued till July 2022, when it was ready to start its first year of science observations, which scientists titled Cycle 1. Parts of these early observations were dedicated to high-impact programs across several disciplines, from which the data would be publicized immediately. 2 of these disciplines, SEERS, the Cosmic Evolution Early Release Science Survey, and GLASS, the Grissom Lens Amplified Survey from Space, independently spent dozens of hours looking for galaxies in the early universe by staring at separate small portions of the sky. Scientists didn't expect much from the JWST. At most, they expected a clearer version of the Hubble Deep Field, with the detection of extremely distant galaxies to pop up after a few cycles of data from multiple programs. However, the James Webb Telescope immediately showed its worth, as the first sets of observations made brought about the galaxies in the images spotted by NIDU and other astronomers and research
The
groups.
fuck is
The
that?
influx of scientific papers about the JWST's initial observations was no accident, because as the first data began streaming down, astronomers and theorists started to write scientific papers and theories about their discoveries. But some scientists looked at the idea of having numerous scientific papers over the first sets of observations with concern. Klaus Pontoppidan, JWST's project scientist at STSCI, expressed his concerns, saying people in research groups might have rushed things.
Ooh, commercial.
changed things a little bit. He
I
gave
just
his
saw an ad
reason,
for
saying
that game
that
earlier
early
today. It looked
collaboration
okay.
issues with Jacob
Goddess of
for
Victory.
example, may have affected some
It's
results.
another
Nathan
Genshin
Adams at the
Impact
University of
button
Manchester in
masher.
England and his colleagues found dramatic changes could occur with one galaxy at a redshift of 20.4 recalibrated to a redshift of just 0.7. However, these issues are not likely to eradicate JWST's high redshift galaxies, given their total number. Because of the number of galaxies seen and reports made by the scientists who discovered them, the odds of all scientific reports being wrong are small. As a result, scientists are looking to conduct follow-up observations with the James Webb Telescope. As a matter of fact, several research groups are sending proposals requesting more time to use the James Webb Telescope for space observations. The majority of these proposals seek to scrutinize high redshift galaxy candidates. Regardless, more programs are set to kick off in the hunt for distant galaxies. One such program is the Cosmos Web Project. The mission is expected to increase the known populations of early galaxies by observing a wide sector of the sky for hundreds of hours, maybe a whole month or more. Scientists believe that thousands of galaxies out there are yet to be detected, and this mission would find them. There are several theories trying to explain how the universe started. They include the steady-state universe, which denies the possibility of a beginning and an end for the universe, but says the universe is continuously expanding while still maintaining the same overall density. In other words, a steady-state universe is forever identical, but continually growing bigger in scale. In this model, galaxies, planets, and other forms of matter are locked in continual recreation. Since the density remains the same, old astronomical objects become unobservable as new creations take their place. Another competing theory is the bouncing cosmology or Big Bounce model, which says the universe shrinks to a minimum volume and then bounces back into a subsequent expansion. There is no shortage of theories of how the universe began, so there is the plasma or electric universe model. Plasma is the word given to the fourth state of matter, that is solid, liquid, gas, and plasma. A plasma is a gas that is so hot that some or all of its constituent atoms are split up into electrons and ions, which can move independently of each other. In plasma or electric universe theory, plasma takes up an integral role in cosmological events and the fundamental order of the universe, proposing electric currents that flow along plasma filaments capable of shaping and powering galaxies. These currents
My feed froze.
stream into stars, powering them like fluorescent bulbs and inducing the births of planets. There are more theories about how the universe began, but the most popular one is the Big Bang, and you can thank the popular TV show The Big Bang Theory for bringing it further to the masses. It is also the most widely accepted in the scientific community. This theory was born of the observation that other galaxies are moving away from our own at great speed in all directions, as if they had all been propelled by an ancient explosive force. A Belgian priest named Georges Lemaitre was first to suggest the Big Bang Theory in the 1920s, when he theorized that the universe began with a single primordial atom. The idea received significant boost from Edwin Hubble's observations that galaxies are speeding away from us in all directions, and from the 1960s discovery of cosmic microwave radiation.
Let that video just catch up there a second. Something's going on. I noticed earlier Facebook did a reset. Like they wouldn't even let me open up the application. So this is the first time we're experiencing a little bit of lag through my computer from my phone. But everything's good. Like I think my internet might be in the middle of a reset right now. So just giving it a second. There we go.
As echoes of the Big Bang by Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson. Further work has helped clarify the Big Bang's tempo. Here is how the Big Bang went. In the first 10 raised to the power of minus 43 seconds of its existence, the universe was very compact, less than a million billion, the size of a single atom. It is thought that at such an incomprehensibly dense, energetic state, the four fundamental forces, gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, were forged into a single force. Still, current theories haven't yet figured out how a single unified force would work. To pull this off, we'd need to know how gravity works on the
Can
subatomic
you get the
scale.
information we came for?
Don't. By the time the universe was a billionth of a second
Like, I
old,
feel like the minute I
universe had
try
cooled
to
down enough
fast
for the
forward it,
fundamental
I like
forces
skip
to
right past
separate
the
from
spot
one
we're
another.
trying to watch.
The universe's fundamental particles also formed. It was still so hot that these particles hadn't yet assembled into many of the subatomic particles we have today, such as the proton. As the universe kept expanding, this piping hot primordial soup, known as the quark-gluon plasma, continued to cool. Some particle colliders, such as CERN's Large Hadron Collider, are powerful enough to recreate the quark-gluon plasma. The radiation was so intense in the early days of the universe that colliding photons could form pairs of particles made of matter and antimatter, which is like regular matter in every way, except with the opposite electrical charge. It is thought that the early universe contained equal amounts of matter and antimatter, but as the universe cooled, photons no longer packed enough punch to make matter-antimatter pairs. So, like an extreme game of musical chairs, many particles of matter and antimatter paired off and annihilated one another. Some excess matter survived, and it's now the stuff that people, planets, and galaxies are made of. Our existence is a clear sign that the laws of nature treat matter and antimatter slightly different. Researchers have experimentally observed this rule imbalance called CP violation in action. Physicists are still trying to figure out exactly how matter won out in the early universe. While scientists talk with confidence about what happened after the Big Bang, what exactly took place before the Big Bang? We will soon get to that after answering these two interesting questions related to the Big Bang. Where did the Big Bang take place? When a stick of dynamite... Have you heard the word? I've heard words.
Yeah,
Very good.
the words.
But have
The
you
bird
heard
is the
that
word.
New legends will be born. Although our sponsor, Plugline... It explodes. The detonation occurs in one place.
Don't you know
Flies
about
into the
the
void.
bird?
However, in the Big Bang, there was no center and no pre-existing void, so it didn't happen at any location per se. Space itself popped into existence and began expanding everywhere at once. Some astronomy books compare the universe to a rising cake, with raisins representing galaxies. As the cake grows, raisins recede from each other with no center of expansion, just like the Big Bang. But, of course, a cake has an edge, unlike the universe, which may go on forever. In the real sense, no analogy can perfectly capture the Big Bang. Also, was the Big Bang a one-off? Well, at the beginning of the Big Bang, there was the inflationary vacuum. When it doubled its volume, it doubled its energy. When it tripled its volume, it tripled its energy. If banknotes were like this and you pulled apart a stack, ever more would appear. Physicists call inflation the ultimate free
The
lunch.
infinite dollar.
The inflationary vacuum expanded ever faster, but it was a quantum thing, and quantum things are fundamentally unpredictable. Randomly, all over the inflationary vacuum, parts of it decayed into an ordinary, everyday vacuum. The Big Bang is the story of how we got here and how the universe got started. And while a lot has been said about the Big Bang, what exactly happened before it? What existed in what form and for how long? This is one of the reasons scientists are excited about the JWST, because it's the only tool that can allow us to see billions of years into the past, enough to have a peep behind the Big Bang. But what exactly is singularity? Singularity, also known as the Planck epoch or Planck era, was the earliest known period of the universe. At this time, all matter was condensed on a single point of infinite density and extreme heat. During this period, it is believed that the quantum effects of gravity dominated physical interactions, and that no other physical forces were of equal strength to gravitation. This Planck period of time extends from point 0 to approximately 10 raised to the power of negative 43 seconds, which can only be measured in Planck time. The extreme heat and density of matter rendered the state of the universe highly unstable. It thus began to expand and cool, leading to the manifestation of the fundamental forces of physics. From approximately 10 raised to the power of negative 43 seconds to 10 raised to the power of negative 36, the universe began to cross transition temperatures. It is here that the fundamental forces that govern the universe are believed to have started separating from each other. The first step in this was the force of gravitation separating from gauge forces, which account for strong and weak nuclear forces and electromagnetism. Then from 10 raised to the power of negative 36 to 10 raised to the power of negative 32 seconds after the Big Bang, the temperature of the universe was low enough 1028 Kelvin that the forces of electromagnetism or strong force and weak nuclear forces or weak interaction were able to separate as well, forming two distinct forces. This was followed by the inflation epoch lasting from 10 raised to the power of negative 32 seconds in Planck time to an unknown point. Here, the universe was filled homogeneously with a high energy density, and the incredibly high temperatures and pressure gave rise to rapid expansion and cooling. This began at 10 raised to the power of negative 37 seconds, where the phase transition that caused the separation of forces also led to a period where the universe grew exponentially. It was also at this point in time that baryogenesis occurred, which refers to a hypothetical event where temperatures were so high that the random motions of particles occurred at relativistic speeds. As a result of this, particle-antiparticle pairs of all kinds were being continuously created and destroyed in collisions, which is believed to have led to the predominance of matter over antimatter in the present universe. After inflation stopped, the universe consisted of a quark-gluon plasma.
Yeah, horrible joke. God just said, "Let there be light." This guy had to go on for 20 minutes explaining this shit.
As well as all other elementary particles. From this point onward, the universe began to cool and matter coalesced and formed. Next was the cooling epoch, where the universe decreased in density and temperature, and the energy of each particle began to decline. Phase transitions continued until the fundamental forces of physics and elementary particles changed into their present form. Since particle energies would have dropped to values that particle physics experiments can obtain, this period onward is subject to less speculation. This was then followed by the structure epoch, which expands over billions of years down to our day. The slightly denser regions of the almost uniformly distributed matter of the universe began to become gravitationally attracted to each other. They therefore grew even denser, forming gas clouds, stars, galaxies, and the other astronomical structures that we regularly observe today. It was during this time that the modern universe began to take shape. This consists of visible matter distributed in structures of various sizes, ranging from stars and planets to galaxies, galaxy clusters, and superclusters, where matter is concentrated that is separated by enormous gulfs containing few galaxies. But you may be asking, where did the Big Bang take place? That is a fair question, because if you hear an explosion outside, you may be fairly accurate in pinpointing the spot where it occurred. So can we travel to the spot in the universe where the Big Bang took place?
Yeah.
Perhaps scientists can find a huge crater somewhere in the universe that corresponds to the ground zero of the event. The fact is that there is no such spot anywhere, because there is no exact spot where the Big Bang happened. The Big Bang actually happened
everywhere. It happened everywhere.
Everywhere, if that makes sense. Never mind that the term Big Bang conjures up explosions or detonation. Meanwhile, even though the Big Bang theory is widely accepted, it is not without its critics. There are some unresolved issues when scientists try to explain the beginning of the universe with the Big Bang theory. The first is the horizon problem. You see, there are portion.
Oh, so I got a couple. There's a couple theories out there that he's trying to just blow past them. But one of the theories is one that I like the most is that white holes and black holes spit out and suck up matter and create miniature bangs, and that's really what our universe is created out of is black holes interchanging matter and energy. Then there's another one where they think that just multiple big bangs happen. So when our universe fizzles completely out, all the matter sucks back into itself, and then another big bang happens and creates a new universe. And then it's a cycle. It just happens over and over again. And then there's obviously the theological or the religious version where God said, "Let there be light," and He created everything. And that makes God the Big Bang point, and everything. But then I think there's one more, and I'm missing it. It's just drawing a blank in my mind right now. But there's quite a few, different ones, and I really like the multiples from the black holes and the white holes type of theory. I think that one's pretty solid, especially because recently they've wrote off a report that a black hole spit out a star. Like they watched it spit it back out. Like I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
The universe that are visible to us, but invisible to each other. Horizon Problem says that different regions of the universe have not yet contacted each other due to the great distances between them, even though they have the same temperatures and other physical properties. We know that CMBR is found to be homogeneous everywhere. So how is this possible? The observed isotropy of the CMB is the problem in this regard because we believe that information is not supposed to travel faster than light. However, the resolution of this apparent inconsistency is offered by inflationary theory, in which a homogeneous and isotropic scalar energy field dominates the universe at some very early period. According to Heisenberg, there were quantum thermal fluctuations during the inflationary phase, which would be magnified to cosmic scale. These fluctuations functions as the seeds of all current structure in the universe. Inflation predicts that the primordial fluctuations are nearly scale invariant and Gaussian, which has been accurately confirmed by the measurement of the CMBR. The instant before inflation began, the universe was only about 10 raised to the power of minus 24 centimeters in diameter. All matter and energy were in close and uniform contact within the briefest instant. The universe then expanded exponentially by a factor of about 10 raised to the power of 50, sending one's intimately connected matter and energy to the farthest reaches of the universe. The information contained in the pre-inflationary universe didn't have to travel the speed of light, it traveled at the speed of inflation. Another problem with the Big Bang Theory is known as the flatness problem. The thing is, according to Einstein's field equations of general relativity, the structure of space-time is affected by the presence of matter and energy on small scales, making space appear flat. This is just like how the surface of the Earth seems flat if one is looking at a small area, but on a large scale, space becomes bent by the gravitational effect of matter. The amount of bending or curvature of the universe depends on the density. What about the events that preceded the Big Bang? Humans are curious and are not satisfied with knowing only what happened post-Big Bang. We want to know what occurred before the event that started it all.
Right.
This is not an easy thing to do, however. For instance, the cosmic dark ages prevent us from traveling back in time to see what happened during the Big Bang. The cosmic dark ages were a time when the universe was enveloped by a fog of neutral hydrogen that trapped the light of the first stars and galaxies. The fog didn't lift until 1 billion years after the Big Bang, when the neutral hydrogen had been reionized and once again split apart. Because light couldn't escape its surroundings during the Dark Ages, it couldn't journey outward through the universe to hit our detectors here on Earth nearly 13 billion years later. Even before that, there wasn't much light before the first stars formed, because aside from hydrogen atoms, most of the universe was made up of dark matter which doesn't emit light. So how do we leap over these dark periods and go right past the Big Bang to see what happened then? Where did all the initial energy come from? This is basically like trying to answer the question of, who were you before you were born? This is where Stephen Hawking stepped in. Hawking regularly blew our minds with his theories on what happened and what's to come in our universe. For instance, he explained how we humans might have about 100 years left on Earth. He also predicted the Earth would become a nice ball of fire within about 600 years. Anyway, we are talking about the less doomsday-esque scenario of what happened before the Big Bang. Here is how the brilliant physicist approached it. There ought to be something very special about the boundary conditions of the universe, and what could be more special than the condition that there is no boundary? Stay with us, it gets more interesting from here. The no-boundary proposal, which Hawking and his frequent collaborator James Hartle fully formulated in a 1983 paper, envisions the cosmos having the shape of a shuttlecock. Just as a shuttlecock has a diameter of 0 at its bottommost point and gradually widens on the way up, the universe, according to the no-boundary proposal, smoothly expanded from a point of 0 size. Hartle and Hawking derived a formula describing the whole shuttlecock, the so-called wave function of the universe, that encompasses the entire past, present, and future at once. This renders moot all contemplation of seeds of creation, a creator, or any transition from a time before. Hartle and Hawking's proposal radically reconceptualized time. Each moment in the universe becomes a cross-section of the shuttlecock. While we perceive the universe as expanding and evolving from one moment to the next, time really consists of correlations between the universe's size in each cross-section and other properties, particularly its entropy or disorder. Entropy increases from the cork to the feathers, aiming an emergent arrow of time. Near the shuttlecock's rounded-off bottom, though, the correlations are less reliable. Time ceases to exist and is replaced by pure space. As Hartle explained it recently, we didn't have birds in the very early universe. We have birds later on. We didn't have time in the early universe. We have time later on. Hawking himself wrote about time. Events before the Big Bang are simply not defined because there's no way one can measure what happened at them.
Marvel Snap is a collectible card game where
we got a load of commercials.
That gets in the way of fun.
Here we go.
Since events before the Big Bang have no observational consequences, one may as well cut them out of the theory and say that time began at the Big Bang. On a Neil deGrasse Tyson show, Hawking also said, "Nothing was around. The Euclidean space-time is a closed surface without end, like the surface of the Earth," he said. One can regard imaginary and real time as beginning at the South Pole, which is a smooth point of space-time where the normal laws of physics hold. There is nothing south of the South Pole, so there was nothing around before the Big Bang. Hawking and Hartle considered the possibility that the universe began as pure space rather than dynamical space-time, leading them to the shuttlecock geometry. They defined the no-boundary wave function describing such a universe using an approach invented by Hawking's hero, the physicist Richard Feynman. In the 1940s, Feynman devised a scheme for calculating the most likely outcomes of quantum mechanical events. To predict, say, the most probable results of a particle collision, Feynman found that you could sum up all possible paths that the colliding particles could take, weighting straightforward paths more than convoluted ones in the sum. Calculating this path integral gives you the wave function, a probability distribution indicating the different possible states of the particles after the collision. In the final years of his life, to better understand the wave function more generally, Hawking and his collaborators started applying holography, a new approach that treats space-time as a hologram. Hawking sought a holographic description of a shuttlecock-shaped universe in which the geometry of the entire past would project off of the present. That effort is continuing in Hawking's absence. For the past year, Neil Turok and his Perimeter Institute colleagues Latham Boyle and Kieran Finn have been developing a new cosmological model with much in common with the new boundary proposal. But instead of one shuttlecock, it envisions two arranged cork to cork in a sort of hourglass figure with time flowing in both directions. While the model is not yet developed enough to make predictions, its charm lies in the way its lobes realize CPT symmetry, a seemingly fundamental mirror in nature that simultaneously reflects matter and antimatter, left and right and forward and backward in time. One disadvantage is the universe's mirror image lobes meet at a singularity, a pinch in space-time that requires the unknown quantum theory of gravity to understand. Boyle, Finn and Turok take a stab at the singularity, but such an attempt is inherently speculative. This explanation of the pre-Big Bang period by Hawking has been fascinating and inspiring physicists for years now. They find it stunningly beautiful and provocative. It was basically the first guess at the quantum description of the cosmos, or the wave function of the universe. Soon, an entire field, quantum cosmology, sprang up as researchers devised alternative ideas about how the universe could have come from nothing, analyzed the theory's various predictions and ways to test them, and interpreted their philosophical meaning. The no-boundary wave function was, in some ways, the simplest possible proposal for that. Or perhaps there was something else before the Big Bang that is worth pondering. One idea is that the Big Bang isn't the beginning of time, but rather that it was a moment of symmetry. This idea, prior to the Big Bang, there was another universe identical to this one, but with entropy increasing toward the past instead of toward the future. Increasing entropy, or increasing disorder in a system, is essentially the arrow of time, Carroll said. So in this mirror universe, time would run opposite to time in the modern universe, and our universe would be in the past. Proponents of this theory also suggest that other properties of the universe would be flip-flopped in this mirror universe. For example, physicist David Sloan wrote in the University of Oxford Science blog that asymmetries in molecules and ions called chiralities, would be in opposite orientations to what they are in our universe. At any rate, another theory holds that the Big Bang wasn't really the beginning of everything, but rather a moment in time when the universe switched from a period of contraction to a period of expansion. This notion
I think that's
suggests
the
that there could be
kind of goes into
infinite
rubber
Big
band
Bangs
theory.
as the universe
Yeah.
expands, contracts, and expands again. So to summarize, the Big Bang theory is the leading explanation for how the universe began, and in its most simple form, it says that the universe as we know it started with an infinitely hot and dense single point that inflated and stretched, initially at unimaginable speeds, and then at a relatively measurable rate over the next 13.8 billion years to the still expanding cosmos we see today. So far, the Big Bang is our best guess about the origins of our universe, but now it seems that these new images from the JWST are making some scientists doubt the credibility of this theory. The Big Bang theory has been defended for multiple decades as an unquestionable truth by most cosmological theorists, but the new data from the JWST is making ones like Alison Kirkpatrick panic. She is an astronomer at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, and according to her, the latest revelations have made her question whether everything she's done in the field is wrong. The incredibly small, smooth, old, and surprisingly numerous galaxies are completely incompatible with the Big Bang hypothesis and the opinion of a few scientists. The Big Bang proposes that the universe is expanding and a strange optical illusion must exist in outer space. Galaxies and other objects in the expanding space do not continue to look smaller with increasing distance. Beyond a certain point, they start getting bigger, as their light is supposed to have left them when they were close to us. But the images of the JWST show them getting smaller. In Albion,
Finally, we're at the point where like it's telling us what we wanted to hear.
everybody has that smaller. Even the galaxies with much greater luminosity and mass than our own Milky Way appear 2 to 3 times smaller in these images. In other words, the galaxies the JWST is showing us are the same size as the galaxies near us, indicating that the universe isn't expanding and the redshift isn't proportional to distance. The newer galaxies in the images have a redshift that is 2 to 3 times greater. This strongly contradicts the theory of an expanding universe, the opinion of Eric Lerner and Ricardo Scarpa, but aligns with their prediction that we are part of a non-expanding universe. They had previously published results based on Hubble Space Telescope images that showed galaxies have a redshift all the way up to 5 that matched the expectations of non-expanding ordinary space. They were confident that the James Webb would only confirm their hypothesis. Big Bang theorists had expected to see badly mangled galaxies scrambled by multiple collisions and mergers. However, the JWST images actually showed overwhelmingly smooth disks and neat spiral forms, just like we see in today's galaxies. The data in the Panic article shows that there were around 10 times more smooth spiral galaxies than predicted, and this challenges our ideas about mergers being a very common process. According to Lerner and Scarpa, this data utterly destroys the merger theory. The Big Bang theory implies that the most distant galaxies in the James Webb images are seen as they were about 400 to 500 million years after the origin of our universe. But some of the galaxies have shown stellar populations that are at least 8 billion years old. Now, according to the Big Bang theory, nothing could have originated prior to it, so the authors of the Panic article believe that the existence of these galaxies is proof that the Big Bang didn't occur. And just as there must be no galaxies older than the Big Bang, some theorists expected that as the JWST looked out further in space and time, the galaxies would become fewer and eventually there would be none left, signifying a dark age in the cosmos. But a paper yet to be published demonstrates that galaxies as huge as the Milky Way are common even a few 100 million years after the hypothesized Big Bang. From the Big Bang standpoint, the distant galaxies are supposed to be intrinsically smaller. One galaxy noted in the papers is GHZ2. It is far more luminous than the Milky Way and yet is calculated to be just 300 light years in radius. This is 150 times smaller than the Milky Way. And the JWST images aren't the only reason the Big Bang theory may be considered wrong according to Lerner. He
No.
believes that right now the Big Bang
That right there.
makes
That
16 wrong
you
prediction.
stop. Okay, so he said that a galaxy, real far away from us. Okay, whatever. But the thing is expected is that it's super luminous, so they expected it to be bigger than our galaxy, but it's not. But if you think about it, when we take things here on Earth and if we compress them, don't they like start to heat up and glow with heat and stuff when you compress certain things?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens if you were to take a whole bunch of hot stars and shrink them into a smaller space? Wouldn't they burn brighter next to each other? In theory,
Possibly.
so um I don't necessarily agree with the findings that they're trying to say there's no expansion. Um there's been a paper to retract this sense, and the paper states that while we're not seeing expansion within a galaxy, we are seeing expansion in the universe between the galaxies. So the distance between point A and B is becoming larger and larger as they drift further and further away. And that's the expansion that still exists, but they're trying to say that the expansion in galaxies doesn't exist and therefore it shouldn't exist in the whole universe. And that's not true. That's very false because they've also discovered recently that most of our galaxies have a giant black hole in the middle of them, and black holes don't let things expand. Black holes suck things up. So that's my only opinion on that subject matter, right? Like, I'm like to argue that whole concept, I guess.
Its prediction of helium is off by a factor of 2. The prediction of the abundance of lithium is off by a factor of 20. And besides the absence of larger and more distant optical illusions, there is also the existence of large-scale structures too big to have formed in the time since the Big Bang. Most cosmologists and astronomers have stated that there's an explanation for every doubt Lan and Scarpa's article has raised. The Big Bang is definitely not dead, and the recent observations of the JWST haven't disproven the theory. These observations have revealed some unexpected and strange things about the universe, but that's all. The Big Bang is centered around 2 facts. First, that more distant galaxies have a higher redshift than closer ones. And second, that the universe is filled with a cosmic background of microwave radiation. These constitute 2 of the 3 pillars of data supporting the Big Bang theory, the third one being the relative abundance of elements in the early universe. But these are just the foundation of the model. In past years, scientists have expanded on these to create the standard model of cosmology, also called the LCDM model. Everything from acceleration of cosmic expansion to the clustering of galaxies support this model. The Tolman test predicts that if the universe was non-expanding and static, the surface brightness of all the galaxies would be the same, regardless of the distance, which isn't the case, as evident by the JWST images. The distant galaxies have a dimmer surface brightness than the closer ones in these images. It is a common misconception that redshift proves that galaxies are speeding away. They aren't in reality. Distant galaxies aren't speeding through space. In fact, space itself is expanding and thereby putting greater distance between us. This subtle difference emphasizes that the galactic redshift is a result of cosmic expansion and not relative motion. Experts aren't denying that what the James Webb Space Telescope found doesn't entirely align with their predictions, but astronomers were hoping to find this sort of puzzling data. They believe that is the reason why so much was invested in building the James Webb Space Telescope in the first place, and they understand that the data collected by this magnificent telescope doesn't tell us that the Big Bang model is wrong, but some of their assumptions about it could be.
No one tells stories better than Audible, the home of storytelling.
So that's
For
basically the
motivation
end of
and
that.
comedy.
Oh, happy day. All right. So like I was saying, like they were like just trying to argue, and then they were like, but other scientists say this, and this. Like, right? So I think that while we can observe that the galaxies aren't expanding, we can also observe that between the galaxies, space the distance between them is greater, and that is the expansion we originally meant. Like I think that's what we originally talked like as humanity. We agreed that that is what expansion was. I thought it was. I didn't know we thought that the galaxies were also getting bigger too. I didn't know that. So
I think I think we know so little that it's really hard to take any. I mean, we're trying to act like we know and are figuring out things about a place that we haven't even done much traveling in.
right.
We can't even, we don't even have the means of leaving our own solar system, and we're trying to come up with theories on, how.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just think,
I get
think,
what.
I think we should be putting more efforts towards, how do we make ourselves a part of that
Yeah.
space and travel through it, and then get out and learn some things firsthand versus trying to look through a camera lens and then I mean, I love what they do and I love those type of videos, but it's like let's do some real exploring of our own. I mean,
Yeah.
y'all are trying to figure out the universe, and we don't even know what's at the bottom of our oceans.
There's a yeah. I mean that's. But I would argue that the reason we don't know is because the oceans are forever changing, and we've given up the interest. We've stopped being interested in the ocean. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's like a big thing. It's humanity. We've just gone, yeah, no, we're good. Once we got so far down and we're like, yeah, okay, shit's scary there. That means it gets worse. Let's stop.
Yeah,
And
I think when they were exploring the ocean and trying to map it, I think they found things they didn't want to find or shouldn't have found, and that's when they stopped and said,
yeah,
"Well, let's go to the moon."
yeah, I think in the 1960s, yeah, submarines were pretty popular, man, and all the way up into the 80s. And then in the 80s, they were like, no, we're done. Like, they still do some submarine work and stuff, but a lot of that's search and rescue. And then there's places you can't even take. Like, there's certain places where you can't even go still because it's just quarantined off. It's just like, no, we just don't want you going here. Oh, what's over there then?
Have
Let's go
you
see.
have you watched the video of that? Well, I can't. Ghost Knight did about. He did a little thing where he said he had a follower or somebody kind of give him some information, and there was a like ex military guy that and pretty much I don't know. It'd be a fun one for you to watch if you haven't watched it, but he was pretty much saying, it's a lie that we've only discovered or explored 10% of our oceans, where in fact there's maybe only 5% left that we haven't explored. He made mentions of underwater bases that they would dock their not some of those submarines at and stuff, and he had some cool stories. I'm not going to dig too deep in it. I'm going to gutter some of the stories, but
Yeah.
the big thing for me, I think, was just kind of the lie where we've really actually explored 95% of it, not 5% of it, and we got a lot more going on down there than we lead the general public to believe.
I could agree with that. I could say that that's a more feasible thing. Like I know a few people in military circles and stuff, and I've heard some things that made me go, huh? Like I had to like see if they could embellish a little more on what they had just said, and but a lot of times it's just like some random quip you'll hear from somebody while you're having a few drinks with someone, but yeah, I think they found a lot of things, and like like I said, we touched a basis on it a little bit ago, but somebody was talking about how randomly beached whales are popping up again and stuff. And like I had said before, that I believe that beached whale since sets on the fact that they're having a war in the North Atlantic right above Norway and Sweden and up there. There's an ocean area up there where they're doing sonar weaponry. They're using sound vibration underwater weaponry to fight against mermaids and stuff. And the whales are actually just
It's fucked them
basically,
up.
well, it's fucking the whales up. But what
Yeah,
it
it's
is the mermaids are using the whales as like tanks
fucking-
and stuff, like, for maneuvering and shit. And so the mermaids themselves are kind of putting the whales in harm's way, is what I think. But for the most part, what I was told was, and through the research I did for this, that yes, somewhere north of Norway and Sweden in the ocean, right above, like all of that Europe part, there's a spot where, yeah, the Royal Navy, the U.S. Navy, and it's either the Chinese or the Russian Navy are there, and they're using sonar weapons on whatever's fighting against them in
Oh yeah, I
that,
mean,
that
I mean,
location.
over there by Norway, there's definitely a part of the ocean that's had a lot of UFOs and USO, reports throughout, many years.
Yeah.
So it's been a hot spot for a very long time. So I don't, disbelieve what you're saying.
Yeah, it was, they did a documentary on the History Channel about it, I believe. Because they originally were trying to figure out why the whales were dying. Like that's just what they were like. Why are these whales beaching themselves? Why are they dying? So they started tagging these whales, and they found out that these whales were going to where I'm saying that they were going to. And when they got hit with these sonar weapons, they would get discombobulated and end up 1,500 miles off of their original migration path. And they would be on a beach somewhere because they were so discombobulated from the weapon. And it was, yeah, it involved like the North American Oceanic, whatever, NOAA or whatever. And then it also involved a couple smaller research facilities. But yeah, it was a big thing on. It was either Discovery Channel or the History Channel. It was like a 6-episode series, and they got to the bottom of it. They found out, oh, it was. They were like, okay, well, at the end of it, they were like, we can't disclose any further information. The military is involved, and that's what we were told to tell the public, is that this is now, like, this is a military operation, and we can no longer,
Talk about it.
yeah, we'll not talk about it, but we can't interfere. We can no longer interfere with the situation. But obviously, they were allowed to talk about it because they put the whole thing up on television. So that's where I was just like, well, that sounds weird that they would put it up on TV like that. But during the end of this whole spiel or whatever, they started doing sonar recordings. Like they started sticking microphones in the water over there. And while they were hearing the sonar blasts, they were also hearing whales, and then they were also hearing something else talk. Something else was talking between the whales and the sonar blasts, and they said that was the voice of a mermaid or whatever is what they were told. They were told that is the exact echo and sonar sounds that a mermaid would make. So it's kind of crazy. It's one of those things. It was one of those very obscure things that I looked into back when my brother-in-law told me that mermaids were real. And I didn't believe him at first. But then you got to remember the person who's telling me this is, he's in the Navy. So if he's telling me, like, these are real, okay, well, now I got to say that there's got to be some sort of reason why you would tell me that they're real. And then I go and look, and I dig up all this stuff. There's a whole bunch of videos and stuff that are really crazy. He confirmed with me that one of those videos is real. Of like the 5 that are out there, there's 5 different videos where they actually show you mermaids in tanks. Like they're like, oh, it's a creature swimming around in the tank. Well, he said one of those is actually real. That's a real thing, a real facility, and everything. He said, I don't know which video it is anymore. I don't remember, but he was like, when you do the research, you'll see 5 different ones or 5 different setups of it. He said one of those 5 setups, he was like, that's real. And he said it's crazy. He said when you're watching the video, it's clear that it's real. It's not CGI or anything like the other ones. Like the other ones have bit mapping and you can see it looks CGI. But he said this is the one you're gonna see. He's like, it was recorded with the old school tape. Flip open, put the tape in, and close the tape. He was like, it was recorded with that kind of camera recorder. So there's no digital blotchiness to get from that kind of a camera. He's like, you shouldn't get that. He said so. It was like, oh shit, it's crazy. But that's where I got my information on mermaids and stuff, and why I believe mermaids are real and stuff. Just some people I trust told me they're real. And I trust those people. Yeah, so here we are. We're at 2 hours of the show, so that's it for the night, I guess. Mermaids are real. The Big Bang Theory is partially being disproven or recalculated, and what was the other thing we were talking about? Oh, we stopped and viewed the comet for a little bit, talked some trash, and here we go. That's about it for the night. We'll be back tomorrow for another issue of the Late Night Load after I do an episode of Friday Night Kit Bash over there at Kit Bash Gundam. I'll be working on the other half of the arms for this build-off that I'm doing. It's just a team build-off, not really a competition type of build-off, but I figured I'd jump in and keep it going for that. And so I'll be doing some work on that, get the camera zoomed in on my hands while you see what I'm doing tomorrow. I'll go through everything that I did work on so far with the kit again and stuff like that, and then we'll talk about some other shit. But yeah, I'll be excited to see what we get into for tomorrow night's Late Night Load and some video games for sure tomorrow. Video games.
Yeah, speaking of that, I was recommended an app for scanning and inventorying cards, and it's actually an app ran by Dragon Shield, the sleeves.
Oh,
And
okay.
me and Kiriana sat down we lost track of time and spent about 3 hours. I gave her my tablet and I had my phone, and I synced them up so we could scan cards twice as fast. And we got through around 2,700 cards scanned. Within that time, we got most of my books done, and I got 7 of my decks scanned.
Nice.
And it right now, of what I've scanned, my collection's at around $4,500, and I still have many decks to.
I was about to say, I was like, that's gonna skyrocket here once you get all those decks put in.
Yeah, as of right now, my Dragon deck's my most expensive deck, sitting over $300.
Oh wow! All right, yeah, we'll leave you with.
I'll send you the link to that. You can check this app out.
Sweet, yeah, and we'll leave you with this picture from Newsweek of that 50,000 year comet.